Ever feel like your thoughts are running the show and you're just trying to keep up? In a world that rewards noise, have you forgotten the power of stillness? Here's the hard truth. It's not what happens to you that breaks you. It's how you respond that makes or unmakes the man. Do you ever catch yourself rambling, overthinking, or stuck in a loop of frustration, talking more than you need to, yet saying nothing that truly matters? Today's world is overflowing with distractions. Quick opinions are mistaken for confidence. Loud voices pass as wisdom. And somewhere in all that chaos, many men have lost their way. They feel scattered, drained, and strangely disconnected from their own strength. But centuries ago, the Stoics understood something timeless. Real power doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what matters. It's not about raising your voice. It's about choosing silence when it serves you best. It's not about overthinking. It's about directing your thoughts like a disciplined warrior aims his spear with purpose. In this video, we'll explore how Stoic philosophy for men can help you cut through the noise, sharpen your focus, and reclaim your presence. You'll discover how to master your inner world, respond with clarity, and develop a calm, grounded strength that speaks volumes even when you say nothing at all. Because if you've ever felt like life is pulling you in 10 different directions, you're not alone. But here's the thing, today doesn't have to be another lost day. Stay with me, because the moment you learn to think less, speak less, and act with more clarity, the world no longer controls you. You control it. Hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next part of this quiet but powerful transformation. 1. Thoughts aren't facts. Have you ever had a single thought ruin your entire day? It starts small, a quiet whisper in the back of your mind. I'm not good enough. Things will never change. What if I fail again? And before you know it, you're living as if those thoughts are truth, carved into the stone of who you are. But they're not. The Stoics knew this well. Epictetus taught, it's not the events that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them. Yet how often do we confuse a temporary emotion for eternal truth? How often do we let a fleeting thought become a prison we walk into voluntarily? Picture this, you're standing at a train station. Each train that passes is a thoughtsome full of regret, others packed with anger or fear. But here's the choice. You don't have to get on any of them. You can pause, you can breathe, you can stand still on the platform and just watch them go by. That small act of observing without reacting, that's Stoicism in action. It's not glamorous, but it's powerful. Because when you get caught in your thoughts, they own you. But when you learn to step back and witness them without judgment, they lose their grip. They fade. I remember a late-night conversation with a team leader I respected, a calm, respected man. He told me something I'll never forget. Every morning, without fail, he woke up with a knot in his stomach. Not because of his workload, not because of life's chaos, but because the moment he opened his eyes, his mind would whisper, "You're behind. You're not doing enough. You're going to mess it up." For years, he lived under the shadow of those words, as if they were commandments. But they weren't. They were just thoughts. And once he realized that, he started taking his mornings back. And so can you. Sometimes it only takes a small shift in how we see our thoughts to change everything. That was the turning point for him. He had been trapped in a loop of self-judgment, believing every harsh verdict his mind whispered. But then, he stumbled across the writings of Marcus Aurelius, and something inside him clicked. He realized he didn't have to fuse with every thought. He could create distance. Instead of saying, "I'm screwing up," he began to say, "I'm having the thought that I'm screwing up." It sounds small, almost subtle, but that change in wording created space. Suddenly, it wasn't him failing. It was just ... a thought, a passing cloud, a wisp of smoke. And just like smoke, if you don't feed the fire, it clears. Now don't get it twisted. This isn't about pretending your thoughts don't exist. And it's definitely not about forcing fake positivity. That's just another way of dodging the truth. This is about seeing your thoughts for what they are. Automatic outputs of the mind. Some useful, many not. A lot of them just leftover scraps from old wounds, inherited fears, and emotional reflexes you never signed up for. And here's the key: you are not your thoughts. You are the space where those thoughts appear. You are the one who decides which to keep and which to let drift away. That's where Stoic practice begins. With awareness, you don't need to move to a cabin in the woods or sign up for some spiritual retreat. What you need is just a few quiet moments each day to pause, and notice when a thought stings. Don't react. Don't push it away. Don't grab hold of it. Just watch it and ask, is this really true? Do I have proof? Is this thought making me stronger or weaker? If it's not helping you grow, let it go. Not in anger, in calm, like dropping a rock you've carried too long. One thought at a time, one breath at a time. You begin to carve out space inside yourself, and in that space, something no thought can fake begins to take root. Clarity, calm, a quiet strength that doesn't waver. It's not magic, it's discipline, the practice of returning again and again to the present, back to the platform, back to yourself. The Stoics didn't try to stop thinking. They aimed to tame their minds. Because an untamed mind is like a wild horse, it'll drag you to places you never meant to go. But a trained mind that becomes your ally, it lights your path forward. And more importantly, it lets you walk it with freedom. So the next time that voice in your head says, "You can't, you're not enough," it's too late. Pause, breathe. Don't get on that train. Stay grounded. Stay with yourself, because your thoughts don't define you. What you do with them, that's what defines you. That's real power. Quiet, internal, unshakable. To the power of saying less, the stronger your soul, the less it needs to justify itself. Marcus Aurelius: some silences make people uncomfortable. Others, they command the room. In a world that mistakes fast talking for intelligence and loudness for authority, choosing to speak less has become a rare kind of rebellion. But it's not rebellion against others. It's rebellion against the ego. Because the ego always wants the last word. It wants to snap back, to win, to be heard. But you're not here to prove anything. You're here to master yourself. I remember a guy from our office, someone people didn't mess with. Not because he was mean, but because he was different. He didn't talk unless it was necessary. He listened, he observed. And when he finally opened his mouth, every word landed with weight. Not because he was loud, but because he didn't waste a syllable. He never argued, never over-explained. He only spoke when he had something worth saying. And that made him unforgettable. To the Stoics, that wasn't just a personality trait, it was a virtue. A wise man doesn't speak out of habit, he speaks out of intention. He doesn't jump into every argument, because he knows some battles are won by simply not joining them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul grows stronger when it stays calm amid the noise of the world. And that is the challenge, isn't it? To hold your ground while everything around you screams for your attention, for a reaction. Saying less is not about suppressing your voice. It's about choosing when to use it. It's about knowing that not every jab deserves a punch back. Not every taunt needs an answer. Not every moment calls for an explanation. When you react to everything, you give your energy away. You scatter, you drain, you unravel. But when you choose silence on purpose, you sharpen, you gather, you strengthen. You become the man who doesn't just react, he acts. Because the Stoics were never trying to please the crowd. They were trying to master themselves. The Stoics lived by virtue, and part of that virtue was this: never say more than you need to. They measured their words the way a fighter measures his punches, because one extra word can cut deeper than you intended, while a well-timed pause can diffuse an explosion. Think back to the last time you spoke impulsively. Maybe it was a sharp remark, a quick defense, an opinion you didn't really need to share. Was it worth it? Or did it leave you hollow, filling the silence afterward with regret? Silence, on the other hand, never needs repairing. It buys you time. It gives you perspective. It returns control to your hands. Saying less forces you to be more present. It compels you to truly listen, not to react, not to win, but to understand. And then something surprising happens. The other person lets their guard down. They sense you're not trying to attack, you're paying attention. And you begin to change too. By not speaking, your thoughts become clearer. Your words stop being reactions. They become intentional choices. Epictetus taught, we must first control our impulses, then our words. And he believed there's no greater freedom than the freedom to not justify yourself. That kind of freedom isn't loud. It lives in your breath, your eyes, and the calm you carry in your presence. Even when you could dominate a conversation with a sharp argument, you choose silence. Because saying less isn't just a mood, it's a philosophy. It reminds you that real control begins with the tongue. That true respect isn't demanded, it's earned. And in a world full of noise, a man who masters silence becomes a presence that needs no introduction. So next time you feel the urge to fire back, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this necessary? Is it useful? Is it true to the man I want to be? If the answer is no, keep your words. Because sometimes the greatest strength is saying nothing at all. And in that silent space, you grow clearer, stronger, more like yourself. 3. Control what? You can control. There are moments when it feels like the world is against you. Everything falls apart at once. Plans unravel. People disappoint. Opportunities vanish. The past stings. And the future feels like a weight on your chest. In the middle of all that noise, one question rises. Now what? Most people look for someone to blame. Others give up completely. But a certain kind of man makes a different choice. He turns inward. He knows the one power no one can take away. His power to choose how he responds. You don't get to pick the cards life deals you, but you do get to choose how to play them. Epictetus called this the split between what's in your control and what isn't. A principle so simple, yet so brutally honest. It puts the weight of your mental state back where it belongs, your own shoulders. Not on what happens to you, but on what you allow it to do to you. You can't stop people from disappointing you, but you can choose not to let disappointment consume you. You can't rewrite the past, but you can make sure it doesn't define your identity. And the moment you stop wrestling with what you can't change and take control of what you can, you begin to reclaim your power. Picture a ship on the open sea. The captain doesn't control the wind or the waves, but he does control the rudder, the sails, the decision to keep going or to adjust course. A Stoic lives like that captain. He doesn't deny the storm. He doesn't sugarcoat the chaos. He simply asks, where do I still have leverage? Then he acts, he adjusts, he builds. I once spoke with a man who lost his business after 20 years. He said the hardest part wasn't the money, it was the powerlessness, watching his identity crumble with every overdue bill for months. He drowned in frustration, pointing fingers, stuck in everything he couldn't control. Then one day, he paused, took out a notebook, drew 2 columns. On the left, what I can't control. On the right, what I can. His routine, his mindset, his discipline, his willingness to start again. From that day forward, he didn't just rebuild a business, he rebuilt his peace of mind, because clarity gives you strength, and focus makes you untouchable. Marcus Aurelius, the man who ruled an empire, understood this truth. You can't control everything, but you can always control yourself. Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He was an emperor, could command legions, issue laws, rule over millions. But what he couldn't control was fate. So he wrote to himself, not as a ruler, but as a man to remember that happiness doesn't come from the outside. It comes from the quality of your thoughts. He reminded himself that even though the world may spin into chaos, he still had a choice. To not complain, to not quit, to stay anchored firm in his core while everything else trembled. Because controlling what you can doesn't mean fixing everything. It means grabbing the wheel, even when the sea is rough. It means that when your world feels like it's falling apart, you decide what stays unshaken within you: your breath, your principles, your steady, deliberate actions. It's about living from your roots, not your reactions. If you ever feel lost, pause, breathe, look closely at what you're trying to control, and then let go of what was never yours to carry. Redirect all your energy into the part you can move, no matter how small it feels. Because when you choose, with clarity, where to invest your strength, every step becomes firmer. Every action becomes more yours. That's what keeps a man from collapsing, not luck, not perfect circumstances, but his relentless decision to return again and again to what actually matters. Because transformation doesn't begin out there. It doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins now, in what you choose to think, in how you choose to respond, in who you decide to be as, especially when no one else gets a vote. 4. Focus on what makes you grow. Have you ever walked away from a conversation and kept replaying it in your head for days? Or laid awake over a mistake that happened months ago? Or maybe someone hurt you and, even though they're long gone, the pain still lingers. Not because of what they did, but because you keep feeding it. The mind is like rich soil. Whatever you plant grows. If you sow guilt, anger, or resentment, don't be surprised if you never harvest peace. The issue isn't that you remember, it's that you get stuck there. In that moment, in that loop, that same thought, playing like a broken record. And here's the hard part. Sometimes, without even realizing it, you turn your own mind into a prison, and you're the one holding the key. But here's the truth. You're not sentenced to stay there, because what you think is not a life sentence. It's a choice. This isn't about pretending everything's okay or burying the past. It's about redirecting your attention again and again toward what builds you up, what helps you grow. A man who constantly looks backward can't move forward. It doesn't matter how fast he runs, if his eyes are locked on the past, he's stuck. It doesn't matter how hard you try if your focus stays fixed on what's unchangeable. You drain your own momentum. But the moment you start to shift your gaze toward the light, something begins to open, not loudly, not instantly, but it opens, and that's where real growth begins. Marcus Aurelius, in the middle of wars, betrayals, and illness, would write at night alone, in silence, that the soul strengthens itself by narrowing its focus to what truly matters, not the past, not what could go wrong tomorrow, but what life is asking of you today. Because today, flawed, chaotic, unpredictable as it may be, is the only place where your actions live. Your attention is the bridge between who you are and who you could become. Every single time you notice your mind drifting into fear, memory, or distraction, and you pull it back to now, you are training the quiet muscle called self-discipline. Think back over any day in your life. You've had thousands of thoughts, some light, some heavy, but only a handful shaped what you did. Only a few truly consumed your energy. The goal isn't to stop the thoughts, it's to stop feeding the ones that drain you. To do that, you must return. Return to your breath. Return to your body. Return to what truly matters right now. I remember reading a comment under a Stoic video. A guy wrote, "Every time I try to move forward, my mind drags me back to the same memory, the same person who hurt me. And I lose hours there, like it's all still happening." I felt that because we've all been there. But the solution isn't to run from the thought. It's to face it, acknowledge it, and then with intention decide that today it doesn't get any more of your energy. Even if it's just for an hour, you redirect that energy toward something, anything that moves you forward. The Stoics weren't about suppressing pain or bottling things up. They were about transformation, taking the weight that drags you down and using it as a signal that there's something inside you that still needs to be let go. And that transformation always starts with a quiet choice. What you choose to give your attention to. Every time you choose to focus on something that adds value, whether it's reading, training, building, learning, you're sending a message to the world. And more importantly, to yourself. I'm done wasting my life on what I can't change. You can't control every thought that enters your mind, but you can decide which ones get to stay. And that decision made again and again becomes your character, your path, your quiet strength, a strength that doesn't need to be loud. It shows in how you carry yourself, in the way you move, in the way you make decisions, in your ability to keep walking forward while others are stuck replaying their storms. Focus isn't some natural-born talent, it's a skill, and like every skill, it sharpens with repetition. So when your mind tries to pull you back to pain, to regret, to the chaos of yesterday, don't fight it, don't follow it, just breathe, acknowledge it, then come back to now. Because your life follows your attention, and where you place it, that's where you grow. 5. Accept what is Marcus Aurelius once said. If you're pained by something external, the pain isn't from the thing itself, it's from your perception of it, and you have the power to change that perception. Most men don't break because of the weight they carry. They break because of how they fight that weight. They wish life were different. They wish people hadn't let them down. They wish the past hadn't hurt so badly. They wish plans had gone the way they envisioned, but they didn't. And the more they struggle against that reality, the more it drains them, the more it tears them apart inside. Because it's not the weight that crushes you, it's how you carry it. Acceptance isn't surrender. It's not giving up or sitting back. It's stopping the war against what's already happened. It's looking the loss in the eye, the betrayal, the mistake, and choosing, this will not define me. I will not build my identity from what went wrong. Because the longer you keep wishing things were different, the more you stay shackled to a fantasy. But the moment you accept reality, you breathe. And from that stillness, you gain the clarity to choose a new path. I once received an email from a man who had spent years chasing his father's approval. He tried to be everything, the perfect son, the successful professional, the tough guy, but it was never enough. And then his father died. The grief was overwhelming, but worse than the loss was the unresolved weight. Years of trying to be seen, to be accepted, to be valued. Then he came across Epictetus, and something clicked. He realized that freedom begins when you stop begging for permission to be yourself. Living for someone else's approval is still a prison, even if the chains are invisible. That day, he made a quiet vow to speak to himself with respect, not because his father finally gave it to him, but because he no longer needed it. The Stoics taught that we can't control how the world sees us, but we can always control how we see ourselves. Everyone filters reality through their own scars, their fears, and their beliefs. So if someone shuts you out, it doesn't mean you're unworthy, it means they couldn't recognize your worth. But you can, and you must. Because if you don't, no one else will. Acceptance also means letting go of guilt. That voice in your head constantly reminding you of what you should have done differently, what you should have avoided, what you lost. But here's the truth. The past can't be changed. What matters now is what you do with the present. In the last section, we saw that when you accept the past for what it is, you don't just let go, you begin to rebuild. Not from nothing, but from everything you've learned through the fall. The past doesn't need to be erased. It doesn't need to be rewritten. It just needs to be understood, downed, transformed into raw material for rebuilding. Because once you truly accept that something is over, you can begin again. Not from scratch, but from experience. From a deeper understanding of yourself. Resilience isn't just about enduring, it's about learning. It's about growing after every fall. Not with anger, but with clarity. Not in haste, but with direction. Because every blow that doesn't break you reveals you. It shows what you're able to carry, and what you're finally ready to leave behind. And yes, loneliness can come with that. When you stop living for other people's approval, some will drift away. You won't fit their expectations anymore. You won't be easy to control, but that tweeze part of your freedom. Being alone as your true self is far better than being surrounded while disconnected from who you are. So the next time life doesn't go your way, don't ask, why me? Ask, what can I do now with what I have? Don't wait for life to align perfectly before you begin living. Start now, with what you have, with who you are, with what you already know today, and every time you do, you'll feel something shift inside. Not hype, not noise, but something deeper. A root, a strength, a force that doesn't come from outside. It comes from finally accepting that you don't need to be anyone else. You just need to fully be yourself, even when it hurts. Even when it's hard, because it's in that kind of acceptance that real transformation begins. 6. Embrace silence for clarity. There's a noise that wears you down, even though you can't hear it. It doesn't come from traffic, or your phone, or other people. It comes from within, from a mind that's overwhelmed, chasing everything, trying to fix, solve, respond to everything at once. We live surrounded by constant stimulation, opinions, comparisons, notifications, demands. From the second you open your eyes to the moment your body collapses into sleep, you're under pressure. Do more, know more, be more, but in that storm of more, what you lose isn't just time, you lose direction. Without silence, everything begins to blur. And when everything feels the same, nothing truly matters. But silence isn't emptiness, it's a shelter. The only place where you can actually hear what you really think, what you really feel, what you really want. Maybe you've been walking a path you didn't choose, chasing goals that don't fulfill you, running after winds that leave you empty. All because you never stopped to ask, is this even mine? Silence forces you to face yourself, not with pressure, but with clarity. Because when the outside world finally quiets down, what's left is who you really are. A man once messaged me after watching my videos every day. He said he used to pack his schedule full, couldn't handle even 10 minutes of doing nothing. If he wasn't busy, he felt worthless. But one day, during a full-blown panic attack, he forced himself to sit down. No music, no phone, no one, just 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes he cried, not out of sadness, but out of truth. He saw how long he'd been running, how much noise he'd used to bury what he really needed to face. Now, every morning begins in silence, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Because in that silence, he found answers no book, no podcast, no person could ever give him. The Stoics didn't avoid silence, they embraced it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "In silence, alone, not to impress anyone, but to listen to himself, to clear his mind before making choices that would shape an empire." He knew a noisy mind isn't a free mind. It's trapped, lost in a clutter of things that don't matter. Epictetus said, "The wise man doesn't speak out of habit, he speaks out of necessity." And often what's left unsaid speaks louder than anything you could say. Silence lets you see what's worth your time and what's just noise. See who you are. When the world's no longer looking, see your patterns, your fears, your deepest desires. But it takes courage, because silence will also confront you. It will show you uncomfortable truths. It will remind you of what you've been avoiding. But that's where change begins, not in comfort, but in the quiet space where you finally stop running. If you feel lost, don't chase more noise. Chase more silence. Turn down the volume. Close your mouth for a second. Just one moment. You don't fall silent because you've got nothing to say. You fall silent because, first, you need to hear yourself again. Before you speak to the world, you reconnect with what truly matters. And that isn't out there. It's not in your next goal, not in your next win, not in the next answer you chase. It's in that quiet inner point where the noise stops and you finally meet yourself and know the world won't go quiet for you. There will always be more headlines, more opinions, more demands, but you don't have to tune in to all of it. You can create a pause, a gap, a sacred space where you come back to who you are, not what's expected, not what's copied, but what's real. Because only the man who knows how to be quiet knows how to truly listen. And only the man who listens to what matters knows how to live with purpose. Silence isn't weakness. It's the sign of self-mastery, of mental clarity, of real, unshakable strength. Point 7. Talk less, think more. Most men don't get in trouble for what they don't say. They get in trouble for what they blurt out without thinking. A word snapped in anger, a careless opinion, a reaction fired off without pause. That's where the damage starts, not just in your relationships, but inside yourself. Because every time you speak without awareness, you drift a little further from your own center. In a world obsessed with being heard, the man who knows when not to speak stands out. Think of your mind as a blade. Every word you speak is a swing. If you don't train that blade, it'll cut deeper into you than anyone else. But if you learn when to swing, when to sheath it, and when to sharpen it in silence, you become someone difficult to rattle. Talking less doesn't mean you're unsure. It means you have direction, discipline, clarity, because not every thought deserves a voice. Not every feeling deserves a spotlight. Not every comment deserves your reaction. A guy once messaged me after a family blow-up. He said he lost his temper over something small, but the truth, the anger had been building for weeks. From the words he never said when he should have, from emotions he ignored, from judgments he let simmer, and when it was all over, he felt empty. Because deep down he knew those words didn't come from his truth. They came from the mess he didn't confront in time. So he started a rule: pause before answering. Even if it's just 2 seconds, even if it feels like nothing, but those 2 seconds, they changed everything, because they gave him space to choose, to think, to respond, not react. The Stoics leaned hard into the power of the pause. Epictetus said, "We're not thrown off by events, but by how we interpret them. And that interpretation, it happens before you open your mouth." So the man who learns to master that tiny space between trigger and response doesn't just win arguments. He shapes his character, his energy, his path. In a heated moment, silence can be your sharpest defense. Not because you're out of words, but because you know not every fight is worth your fire in a serious conversation. A well-timed pause gives your words more weight than any volume or clever line. Speaking with intention is an art, and like any art, takes practice. Awareness, courage, not to be dragged into noise. Because today, we're bombarded with opinions to post, arguments to join, reactions to give. But restraint isn't suppression, it's choice. Where do your words come from? From ego or from center? From hurt or from wisdom? From the need to be heard or from the freedom of not needing approval at all? That's what separates a reactive man from a grounded one. You won't always control what you feel, but you can control how you express it. You can learn to observe your thoughts without letting them speak for you. You can train yourself to pause, to breathe, to wait, to choose. Because the man who masters his words doesn't just communicate better, he respects himself more, and a man who respects himself gets respect. So next time you feel the urge to snap back, stop. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong. Not because you're scared, but because you're focused. Talking less isn't holding back. It's letting go of everything that doesn't need to be said. And in today's world, that kind of quiet power is rare. But you can be one of the few. Because real strength isn't about lifting heavy or shouting loud. It's forged in silence. In the moments when you think before reacting. In the days you lock in on what you can control, every time you speak with purpose or stay quiet with wisdom, you reshape the man you're becoming today. We uncovered 3 pillars that shape a grounded man. Think less, talk less, focus more. And this isn't some far-off ideal. It's a daily practice, a way of living built with every small decision, every conscious breath, every thought you observe. But don't let control you, because once you realize your thoughts don't define you, your silence is strength, your focus is direction. Something shifts, not outside but within. You stop needing to prove your worth, because you know you carry it, you live it, you remind yourself of it. Peace, discipline, clarity. These aren't gifts for the lucky. They are skills that you build, sharpen, defend, daily. So don't wait. Start now with what you've got, right where you are. Breathe, pause, choose. And if you ever find yourself slipping, come back to this video. Let these words be your anchor, because your mind only runs wild if you let it. Your voice doesn't. Lose power in silence. And your focus, it's the most powerful tool you own. If any of this spoke to you, drop a comment. Where in your life do you need more silence? What are you choosing to let go of today? Because your story might just help another man find his way home to